You got De Niro in there. I mean, this was. I remember walking out and going, that was really cool. Like, there was no bummer. The book. Do you know the book? Do you know how the book ends?
No, I don't. I've never read the book. The Dark Fields.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
This dude gets super smart. Then he tries to blackmail the company to get more drugs. He fails, but then he learns that he's been a guinea pig in a trial the entire time. And so he starts fading, has all the ill side effects, and is just dying. Goes to a cabin, writes his memoirs, turns on a TV and sees that the president loaded up on NZT is about to go attack Mexico to get all the drugs, to get more NZT, and then the dude dies. So it's a guy who gets this super drug, becomes super dependent on it, and it's kind of like a real drug story. And it's very bleak and nihilistic.
Yeah.
This is not that. But audiences, I guess we don't need that. Like, we've already had Requiem for a Dream, Phil. I don't know if you've seen that movie. That will punch you.
I'm not. I'm aware of some of the goings on in that movie. Yeah.
We don't need another one of those. So I like the way this movie is, but it's just quite interesting. It's about like a former addict who becomes dependent on drugs again and becomes super awesome. But it's fun. It's a really. That's how good Berger is. That's how good Cooper is. That's when you know you've been. Like, this is 10 years later that I'm thinking about all this and just now realizing it. And so that's why I like this movie, because I went, wait a second, is this good? But we don't need it to be good. I mean, anti-heroes are fine, but I just think it's interesting the way everything's portrayed in it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And there's a degree to which I think in all of us, right, we like to see somebody be their best self and tap into their potential. At one point, Vern, the drug dealer says, point. You know, this only works if you're already smart, or it works better if you're already smart, right? And so there's, you know, and earlier in their conversation, Bradley Cooper, you know, Abbie Cornish says, you know, I'm your bank, I'm, you know, your girlfriend or whatever. He says, well, you're more than just that. And he drops some, you know, some very eloquent, descriptive words. And so you get the sense that this is a guy who has potential and has intelligence, but for whatever reason just can't get out of his own way. And so I do think that, you know, as the audience, we like to see somebody at their best. We like to see somebody fulfilling their potential and have success. Each one of us imagines ourselves, you know, as our best self and fulfilling our potential. And so I think it taps into that a little bit. But yeah, it's maybe not the cautionary tale of if you do this with some type of crazy drug that's going to give you, you know, major health problems, that maybe it's not worth it. I think we kind of come away going, you know, if I could get myself some of that NZT, that'd be pretty sweet.
I just got to inject it. I got to be like the gangster, the Russian gangster, Kennedy, and just learn how to. I like how he was smarter in regards to that aspect than Morra ever was. He learned how to synthesize it and make it last longer. And he's like, you don't deserve this. That was really, it's cool. You know what I like most about this drug in this story is each person who has been on it handles it differently. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of cool because we're all different. So you take it and you use it for nefarious means. You use it for this. You think about doing it. It's really neat how, and listen, people would be killing each other for this drug. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not into conspiracy theories, but if this drug existed, Phil, and powerful people could get it, there would be people in gray coats murdering people in parks for this. Because it's, so I like that the intrigue gets involved. I like the various people dealing with it, but it's just, but you know, you make a great point too. We like to see the best of people. I mean, look at Captain America.
Yep.
Look at the Rocky movies. He always has to train to become the best.
Yep.
Look at almost every sports movie that we've watched. We watch them train to be the best. Mm-hmm. It's just this one, he takes a wild shortcut and gets there. But audiences loved it because I think most people didn't walk out of this movie going, I'm going to go pump some Adderall. Like, they didn't think that. I think we were able to enjoy it as sci-fi. But once again, I think it's just the credit of the movie because I never thought about that. I just walked out and went, this was entertaining. That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a cool... It's a cool, fun movie. Stylish movie. And I think, you know, I think I saw it in theaters back in 2011 and, you know, probably came out going, yeah, it'd be cool. I should probably, work out some more, or I should, learn more about the stock market, and or whatever.
Yeah.
How can I be the guy at the cocktail party that's Cooper monologuing, Cooper splaining, everything. I don't know. There's something there where it's cool to see somebody fulfill their potential.
Absolutely. And I mean, the costumes are all good. The suits are cool. Like the lady who did the costumes, Jenny Gering. I mean, she's worked with Scorsese. She was on she did the burger film The Lucky Ones. She had done like just big movies that had happened before. So I think the costuming is good.
Yep.
Like they get you like there's fancy cars in it. They got two of those cars and they're jumping off cliffs. It's kind of funny when he jumps off the cliff and it's just broad daylight. Then when he gets in the water and he comes out, it's magic hour.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that's what looks best. That's, I've always been able to ignore that in films. So in Dark Knight, everyone complains that when they drive into the tunnel, it's like daylight.
Okay.
And then when they come out of it, it's dark. I'm like, whatever. Gotham has weird cycles.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I don't know. People were complaining about that, but I'd rather look at a shot during magic hour than not. So I was happy with that. And just when he first gets on the drug, I think I guess he also does a good job, Bradley Cooper, of just sort of playing the down and out in the beginning, because I guess he's not like super entitled, right? He's not. If this was about an entitled dude who became super awesome, people wouldn't like it. So there's something about Cooper where he's just down and out enough, and for us to believe it, that he can do this transformation quick and we don't hate him immediately. Because I never felt any dislike for the character. But imagine if this was Cam Gigante from Never Back Down getting this drug.
Right. Yeah.
What's the point of this movie? So I think that's also good enough. Like, that he can't write. You watch the patterns about it, and me, I've done a lot of time as a writer and just not like written. Like I've tried. Mark, you got to write, but then I end up like throwing a ball at the wall for a half hour.
Right.
So you see that moment. You see him get dumped. You see his ex-bro-in-law, who was a drug dealer, doing great. He's not. Like
it's one of my favorite lines in the film when he runs into his ex-bro-in-law on the street, and Vern says to him, "Do I look like I'm still dealing?" Absolutely, Vern looks like he is still dealing drugs.
Yeah.
But Bradley Cooper says no. But he definitely, I don't know. That part always cracks me up. It just cracks me up.
And he falls into that. Like, he was talking about how he used to vomit and steal, like when he was a junkie. And
he
falls back into that so easily. And I think that's another reason why you're able to buy into the character a little bit, that it's not Cam Gigante from Never Back Down becoming awesome. It's this guy who has a sordid past becoming awesome. And I think one of the best touches, too, is, he meets the landlord's girlfriend. He actually helps her write the paper. That's a good touch. Like, he woos her, but they write the paper. Like, that's interesting. And then when he comes back into his apartment, he cleans it. Like, normally in these movies, when you become super awesome, you don't have a cleaning montage of your home. I think there's little touches like that keep it human. And that's why people really stayed on board with it. You're
rooting for him, and that's where, again, I think when we're talking about the sort of the story arc overall, where it doesn't necessarily feel like a cautionary tale, because whatever it is, Bradley Cooper has this quality where you're rooting for the guy. He's down and out on his luck. You feel that sympathy for him, and then when he gets himself together, whether it's through his own willpower or through taking a shortcut, you want to see him succeed. And even in the end, where it sort of ends with the fact that he did succeed, you kind of feel good about that. Like, you're sort of happy for the guy. So I'm with you. It's interesting.
He defeats the billionaires, I guess. He comes up and defeats it. But that's interesting, right? But I do think that speech that De Niro gives him about how I see you out there and you're cocky, like you haven't earned it. But then he still defeats De Niro, which you know what, though? I guess if you are tired of like the billionaires and the a lot of people are never going to get even in this door that he's in. This guy gets in the door, and then a lot of higher powers want him out, but he still succeeds and defeats them in the end. So maybe there is a catharsis of this dude. Yes, he did take shortcuts, but he got his seat at the table, figured out how to keep it, and defeated the billionaires who would normally just push people out. So I guess there is that, not Robin Hood, because I don't think he's Robin Hood anybody.
Yeah.
But he's definitely, he kept his seat at the table. And
he's shaking up the establishment.
Yeah.
Right? He's shaking up the establishment.
And that's a different narrative too. There's a lot of neat stuff in this movie that we're just not used to as viewers. The guy becomes super awesome and he doesn't become totally introverted. He doesn't become a complete jerk. When he, with his girlfriend, he definitely lies to her, but then once she realizes what he's about, he never becomes that jerk that becomes too cool for people. Does that make sense? Like, he just wants her back. Those movies where people become popular and then they blow off their friends, and then you got to have that third act thing where like you don't really have that in this. And so they avoid that. They avoid, and you know what's interesting too is I watched the director's cut of it because that's what had the commentary on it. And it goes very bloody. I mean, he drinks blood. He murders people. It's quite a violent. A guy gets stabbed in his eye and can't see anymore and murders people. It goes to quite a hellish landscape. But then he's like, yeah, an ex-arm dealer owned it, and then they just figured that. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
But I guess it's fun. You don't need that investigation there. And you know what, too? Like, he hires a slimy lawyer to get him out of... Yeah. Not a slimy, a really good lawyer to get him out of that lineup. And then that lawyer works for somebody else. And so I think you learn a lot about the system in this movie. He still keeps his place. And then it's still quite interesting. I guess I like that in that regards. But there's just so many things that you keep thinking are going to happen. If he ended up dead in some hotel room in Oregon, people wouldn't have loved this movie.
Yeah.
I guess, like, people don't need to see him go full Scarface and get wiped out.
Right.
So I guess you're able to walk out of this movie with a smile on your face, and that's the B+ cinema score. That's the word of mouth. It was like the ending of Get Out. Originally, I don't know, the character gets arrested, but then they reshot something else and made it a much more crowd-pleasing ending.
Okay.
Got nominated for Best Picture, made hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, I think they just sent audiences out on a NZT high for Limitless, and then it carried on.
Yeah.
And maybe we're going in circles here, but that's what I love about this movie, though. That's why I like examining sometimes why a movie hit, right? Why it succeeded, or why it became a cult classic. And sometimes it's release date, sometimes it's different, but like, what do you think led this movie to being a success?
Yeah, I think it's some of the elements that we touched on. I think definitely, they caught Bradley Cooper, and his sort of star power, in and around this time. I was sort of looking through the IMDb, like his run from Hangover to, 2015, 2016 American Sniper. I really love The Place Beyond the Pines. Did you ever see that movie?
That's a good one. I love that movie.
Man, that movie was awesome. So, I think that's a big part of it. Obviously, you've got the De Niro factor, and that was something that I was going to ask you about was De Niro's role in this, because I'd be interested in your perspective. I feel like late career Robert De Niro, is sort of a controversial figure to a certain degree, in that you have, this guy that is celebrated as, perhaps the finest actor we've ever had, or at least up there in the conversation. Really sort of the latter, half of his career has been interesting, to say the least. He's made some pretty crazy choices, and I feel like that this is one where late stage De Niro, this is a hit, and I really like him in this role. Like, you sort of worry that he's like one of those athletes that like is destroying his leg. He's Jerry Rice on the Raiders, or like, to use an MMA analogy, like, is he, BJ Penn, like,
Diego Sanchez.
Diego Sanchez, 10 losses in a row for BJ Penn. I wonder, your perspective on that, like, kind of late career De Niro, and this seems like a good spot for him here.
Yeah, I mean, he admitted, he did an interview with this movie. He's like, listen, this was not the most challenging film. But he said, I wanted to work with Neil Berger, and I wanted to work with Bradley Cooper. And I enjoyed doing it. So I think he showed up, and this was like a paycheck role, but it was a well-written paycheck role for him. Like, he could have done this in his sleep, but I think what makes this role work for him, if you just look at Bradley Cooper as the young hotshot actor, if you just made this about act, and he takes NZT and becomes the world's best actor, like, blah, everyone's like, oh man, this guy's gonna win an Oscar. And so if you take it like that, and then you have De Niro in there, who, I mean, look at his work on Taxi Driver, look at his work on Mean Streets, Raging Bull. This is a guy that like drove himself, and on Raging Bull, like, he got so out of shape and fat, like he had heart issues, and then he was ripped. So he earned it. He earned his place at this table. He is this character in this movie. So this role of his fits, and it works. I also think he probably wanted to hand the baton off maybe a